Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Big Fitness Podcast. I'm here with Josh Hildebrand. Dude, thanks for coming on the podcast, brother. I just met you over the weekend.
Brother, how dope is St. Louis? We meet at a place like Matt Vincent's Place Dope, watching Same Safer fight, and we hit it off, and we're here doing the podcast.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's what I love. That's one of my favorite things about St. Louis, man, is that, like, you know, you can meet all these dope people. Everyone's kind of, it's like a big, small town, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And everyone's down to get after it with each other.
Especially when you find an incubator like Dope.
Yeah. Dude, it's been totally incredible. I have just met a handful of people from Dope who are a part of the Dope thing. I'm going to have Matt Vincent on the podcast in a couple weeks. There's no set date yet, but in a couple weeks we're going to have Matt on, and he's really created something amazing over there. It's incredible, and all the people are just, they're so down. They're like, dude, how can I help? How can I get you connected? How can I, like, it's very much a group of get after it kind of people, you know?
I do know.
And that's amazing. How long have you been around over there?
So I was following them on social media. I knew they moved to St. Louis. I was kind of starting my breath and exposure thing. All we had was an ice bath at the time. So I just kind of messaged him like, hey, you want to come through? And you know how busy he is. Like, oh, maybe. And then as soon as he opened Dope, I just showed up and I was like, hey, I messaged you a couple times. Like, I teach, I can come through and teach. And then literally just got on his retreats. So now I teach 5 or 6 retreats for people that travel all over the country and come there. And I'm part of that retreat. So I teach breath and exposure to these groups of people for Bonnie and for Matt. And it's been pretty rad, man.
Dude, that's insane. And he's out right now. Like, he just went to Montana, right?
They had their own travel retreat. Yeah, I believe it was their first one. Yep.
Yeah, I've just been kind of paying attention to the stuff he's been up to just lately, because, like I said, like, just lately I've been meeting all these people from kind of his circle. And that's amazing. And I want to get into that, by the way. So I'm just going to kind of run through some of the stuff that I have for you. And then let's dive into your story, dude, and then kind of go from there. So you are a EMT-P, a career firefighter, paramedic in St. Louis, Missouri County, a U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, world finalist in the Firefighter Combat Challenge, and you have some experience in CrossFit. You are a head trainer at CrossFit 26 and an XPT certified coach. What else you got? And dude, this is the thing that I find to be really interesting and I want to dive into. Breath and Exposure STL is your business. You created this. I know you have an awesome tattoo about that.
Yeah.
So let's start with that, and then kind of go into, like, kind of what created that. What is Breath and Exposure STL?
Okay, so Breath and Exposure STL, you come through and I walk you through a little breath practice. We down-regulate you, we up-regulate you. We talk about how and why we should be breathing from the diaphragm, how that translates to everyday life, lifting, stressful stimuli like the ice. After that, then we kind of get you in an ice bath and then get into my barrel sauna. I have a barrel sauna and trailer. So we do 3 rounds of ice and then sauna. And then, yeah, the down-regulation and healing happens. So
what made you want to start that?
Well, so I'll get into the story. So 2017, I was in a dark place. So being in my career, being a military and then a fireman, you're always in that fight or flight state. So for the listeners, you're in that sympathetic state. And when you're in that state and you have a career that's like that, you don't have the tools, you don't realize it, right? So what that looked like over time is joints hurting, not able to sleep, flashbacks. It becomes a all encompassing kind of thing when you have a job like that until you have the tools. So I was in a very dark place with PTSD and depression. I was in recovery, so I did 2 years of sobriety. And while I was in that, I found transcendental meditation. So the coach in me thought, how can I
Transcendental meditation?
It's called TM. Yeah.
TM.
Transcendental meditation.
Sorry to interrupt you, but what exactly is that?
So that's basically you find a local TM coach, similar to a trainer, but for meditation. You meet with them, you do consultations, they give you a mantra, and they basically guide you through how to meditate.
Okay, gotcha.
But the point is, it took me 3 months to figure out how to meditate, right? So the coach in me, I thought, God, I feel great. but how can I get these alpha personalities, these lifters, these military people, firemen, right? How can I get these dudes to sit down, and how can I coach them how to be present? How can I get them out of that fight or flight? Well, I'm in Austin, Texas during this process, and I found cryotherapy outside of a climbing gym. And instantly, I found that meditation feeling with cryotherapy. And so my brain started spinning, and I go down the rabbit hole of studying, learning. I found XPT with Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese, so I got their cert. I got the Art of Breath cert with Brian McKenzie. I got every cert that was available in the sort of the fitness, breath, and exposure realm. And then to start structuring my program to where we're at today.
So you said the feeling of meditation. What is the feeling of meditation? And why do you have to learn how to meditate? That's interesting.
Well, if you think about it, and for the listeners, so our minds are always racing, right? So just being able to kind of sit with self and not be thinking about the past or the future. So there's no real good, if you will, about meditating, but I found that state instantly with the cold exposure. So it's a practice, right? Like I've had people come through that say, it's not life changing. And it's like, well, yeah, kind of like learning to work out. First time you do it, it's not life changing, right? But for me, it was because I found that correlation. The coach and trainer in me found that connection like, oh, I can get these high level people right then, right? I don't want to be part of that 3-6 month process because, like we just talked about with the one-on-one stuff. But if I can coach them through breath and get them in an ice bath, and right away they get that sort of feeling, right, where they're not thinking about anything else, that's when I decided, like, okay, so I'm going from fitness and CrossFit. This is my new thing.
So there's definitely, dude, there's no doubt there's like this unbelievable benefit in regular meditation. And this is, I think, is the hard thing for somebody. I mean, I actually think it's easier to go and run like a marathon to get yourself into this place you're talking about than to just sit still and get yourself into that place. Right. Because you're like, it's just you and your thoughts going wild and you're just engaging with all of them. And it's so uncomfortable that you try to stop it immediately.
Right.
And you found that like if you put somebody through something, just sit in this cold bath, then this will bring you to this place. So what is the benefit of being in this place of meditation? Why sit down and put yourself through this pain of being in an ice bath to bring yourself to this present moment? What's the utility?
Brother, I've had clients that have gotten off pain meds. It helped me. I didn't really finish my story, but in that
yeah, we'll get into it.
In that place, I was very depressed, had really bad PTSD. I would wake up and like sweep my house. We just hear a noise, and my wife, it became normal to her that I would like wake up, sweep my house just because we heard a noise. And so the benefit of that is that outside stuff comes to you and then you become chaos, right? There's so much going on when you're hyper alert that everything is a trigger. Everything's, I got to sit with my back here. I couldn't sit here before I started this practice. I would need to sit there so I could see all entry. I needed to know what was going on, especially being on this street. I would have to be in hyper alert to be able to be comfortable here right now. And so what I do for a living and my practice has made me where I can be here, be present with you, and not worry about that.
So like, then let's go back, because it seems like, I mean, obviously your experience with the Marine Corps, this is something that's significant to why you started what you do right now. So let's go into all the way in the beginning, man. Run through your story. What brought you to this dark place? What brought you to this point where you have like an inability to sit down because you have to be on high alert? Let's go with that first. What is causing this like super dark place in the beginning?
Okay. And again, when you're in that place, I feel like especially the careers that I've chosen now coming up on 2 decades of, multiple combat tours in the Marines and then being a fireman. So you're in it and you don't really realize that you're in it. So multiple tours in Iraq, came back, went to college for a little bit, got hired in a big city department. I worked for St. Louis City for 7 years. And like I said, you're in it, you're doing the work, but you don't realize that you're creating this hypervigilance all the time. And you sort of normalize having to sit a certain way. You normalize having to do things tactically when you're just having dinner with your wife or out with your kids. And there's a normal level of concern right? There's like locking your doors. But thinking about 18 scenarios of someone coming in right now and hurting us, that's not normal. Um, so I didn't know that. Again, I didn't know that until over time, what happens is you start to burn out. And then that becomes all encompassing. And then, like
Mm.
I said, you have inflammation, depression kicks in. You're always thinking about the worst and you're seeing the worst all the time. So inflammation kicks in, anxiety, depression. And then it led up to where I just wanted those voices to end. And so I was suicidal, just kind of really spiraling out of control. And luckily, the veteran not-for-profit that I was working for saw that, and sent me to some retreats down in Houston. And I did some very intensive retreats for my PTSD, and that's what led me on this journey. And I found transcendental meditation, breath work, because I've always worked out, right? And I don't want to shit on the fitness industry, but when you have a very sympathetic state, you're working out, drinking coffee, doing the work that I do. It's just always sympathetic. And so I had all those tools. I had the fitness, right? So from the outside, when I was in my darkest, people would have said, oh, he's doing Spartan races, he's doing coaching, he's doing all this stuff. But I didn't have the tools or the practice to kind of down regulate from that, right? And you have to have that balance. And so that's what this practice has given me.
That's massive. I don't think people really don't understand that difference. You know what I mean? They don't understand that. I've had a lot of yoga instructors come through here, and I've talked to a lot of, and I do yoga myself. And I always say, like, what do you think the hardest part of a yoga session is for the clients that come in, the members who come in? And they always say the last 10-minute shavasana, all the way to like they'll cut the shavasana down to like 2 minutes because people cannot lay still at the end. Like they'll come in and do the work, but they'll lose people because the people, if they do a 10-minute shavasana at the end where it's just sit with yourself and don't engage with the things that come through your mind. And so it's interesting, right? That like the hard part is to
Be still.
be still. It's interesting. When you were in Iraq, how intense did it get? Were you really on like, I mean, was it, you can just explain that. How intense was it in Iraq that it kind of, that spilled over?
So I was part of the invasion. So I was there a couple months prior. And so we were part of the push into Baghdad. So I drove a tactical 18-wheeler, which again, being a young, dumb kid, was like, oh, I'm just driving a tactical 18-wheeler. Later on, once I peeled back and started realizing what I was doing, I mean, I was taking rounds, driving 5,000 gallons of petroleum. You know, now 44-year-old me, I'm like, whoa. They were having huge reenlistment bonuses after my second deployment to come back in. And again, once I went through all my work, I was like, I at that point was not even really processing how dangerous and how catastrophic what I was doing was. And so again, that spilled over. And that spilled over when I was a fireman. There would be calls where I'd be driving and I would be swerving, trying to miss an IED in the road. And so there's all these little things that started to pop up and started to boil over because I didn't have what we're talking about. I didn't have that down regulating practice. And if you've read something like The Body Keeps the Score, you know it carries in your body. And over time, once that builds up, like I said, the aches and pains, that it builds up and builds up and builds up, and eventually it's going to levy.
Yeah, man. Were you like, I mean, how did you just like do the day to day when you were in Iraq? Like, was it something like, you know, like, cause that's insane. And like you're saying, you didn't really realize the difficulty. Were you doing something else detrimental? Like maybe, I don't know, being willfully blind to what you were going through that like also carried over? Like what was going through your mind driving that 18-wheeler, man?
I was trying to be the best Marine I could be, you know, working out. I have pictures I'll post after this podcast. I have pictures of me making a barbell with a pipe and cinder blocks, like lifting weights with my buddies, just trying to be mission ready. So no, that's why young people join or in the military, because someone like me or you would cognitively start thinking, oh, I'm going to do this in this place. If we had to, right? If somebody came right now and tried to affect our freedom, I believe we have some people my age that would do so.
Right.
But there's a reason why enlistment ages are so young. So I was just young. You know, I was doing my job. I'm proud I did it. I'm glad I did it. But the reason why I'm here is to talk about the downregulation part of it, because it's still in the zeitgeist. It's kind of like weak, or you breathe, or why are you doing these ice baths? It's not macho. I've had guys say, "Oh, that's woo woo." And man, I'm going to tell you what: being able to sit with yourself, it's not fucking woo woo. It's
Yeah.
being a rational, balanced human being.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that, dude. It's like, especially with all of the neuroscience around doing things like ice baths, like all of the verifiable evidence of like how good it can be to meditate, even just regular meditation, how good breathing. I think it's something like this, and don't quote me on this, but I think who's it? Andrew Huberman said this, so I don't actually know this. I saw this on an Instagram reel. In any case, he said, and I think it's true. If you stop and you take a deep breath, you feel like your fucking shoulders are buried into your ears, your fucking heart's beating like a rabbit, and you're so worried. It's like you can't even think. Stop. Take 3 seconds, deep inhale. Like so, big deep inhale. Fill the stomach full of air for 3 seconds. Exhale 3 seconds. In 6 seconds, it can decrease the cortisol levels in your blood by up to 50%. And you can almost feel it melt off you if you really just like, all right, for a second here, I'm just going to take a deep breath and then a deep exhale. Anybody who's listening, give it a shot. If you're in your car, even if you're in your car, if you're at your house, whatever, give it a shot. It's real. And I think everybody's like kind of feels that. And if you're intentional about doing breathing like that, but like, then to your point, it's like, well, what are you, some kind of hippie? And it's like,
Right.
No, dude, wrong way of thinking. Totally.
Right.
Especially just with everything we know, science based.
Right.
You know, this isn't just, hey, maybe this works. It's like, no, this freaking works.
Right.
So
real quick, I think the one you're referring to is called the physiological sigh. So you can do this.
Right.
You can do this on a run. I do this with people getting out of an ice bath. It's great when your heart rate's in that zone 4, like 140s, or in an ice bath, right? It's
right.
2 explosive in through the nose, 1 out through the mouth. And you on your next run, try it out. You will see your heart rate go from 130, 140 to just 40 beats within seconds. So it's a good way, like you're saying, to reset that system, no matter what it is. It could be a fight with the spouse. It could be a stressful work environment like we have. It could be anything. But that physiological reset is a way for us to be our own alchemists and be in charge of our system.
And that's super important for everybody. You don't have to have, like, for this to be super incredibly helpful for you, you don't have to have two tours in Iraq. You know, like you're even if you're dealing with like on a day-to-day basis, you're dealing with shit at work, you're dealing with whatever, and you're just a civilian. Like this can be massive for you because you're probably caught up. What got you into it? What was the motivation to get into the military up front? Like, why did you put yourself there?
You know, I always saw it. I grew up in a single family household. My mom was a drug addict, and I found out I had a daughter. And I knew I didn't want to replicate that same pattern. So that was the impetus for me to join the Marine Corps. And yeah, it like I said, it changed my life. I don't like to get too negative because the things I'm doing now are positive, which is why I'm on this podcast talking about it.
100%.
I'm glad I did it. I think all young men should do it as part of being members of this our free society. But we got to talk about the balance aspect.
Yeah, there's no doubt. So then you get so you deal with all of this, you get out. What do you do immediately when you get done with your second tour in Iraq?
So I saw, it's called the proximity suit. So, or potato firefighters. So I saw firefighters put out a tent fire in country in Iraq. At the time, I was thinking about being a federal agent or a cop of some sort. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, whoa, I can put fires out for a living? And I started going to the military bases and talking to guys about it. And I'm like, I like the structure. I like the uniforms. So as soon as I came home, I went back to school and started digging deep into being a fireman.
I was a firefighter for a year and a half in Peru, Peru, Illinois. I was a volunteer firefighter, so I just ran around with the beeper. Shit would go off, and then we'd show up, and that was awesome. That was an amazing experience. One thing I noticed, it was like it sort of had a lot of. It wasn't like military by any means, but it had a lot of like military kind of structure.
Yeah, it's
you know
called
what I mean?
paramilitary.
Yeah, paramilitary. Yeah,
Yep.
that's right.
Yep.
So it kind of does make sense, like right off the bat. You know, you get out and you go into something like that, and so you're like, I want to get after. How many fires have you fought?
Oh man, I don't know.
Just a lot. How long have you been a firefighter?
15 years now.
15 years. Got you.
Yeah.
And what keeps you going there?
I love serving, man. I love helping people. And again, that's where the balance comes back in. Being able to come to someone's house when they're having their worst day. Now, there's a lot of bullshit we run, right? We run a lot of medical stuff where you don't need to be in peak performance. But the times that you do, that's where I pride myself. Being able to stay honed in, dialed in, see the things that are going to happen, help people, help the guys around you. That's why I love this job. And it's not really a job to me. It's a passion, man.
Yeah, it's fucking dope, man. Like, look, at some point, I want to get back to it. At some point, I want to get back to it because right now, I'm just putting all my time into the gym, growing the gym out, and it's been like 7.5 years since I was on the department. But I was kind of waiting for my wife to get out of college, and her dad is the assistant chief of the Peru Fire Department. And he just one day, I got out of the gym, and he was like, "Hey, you want to be a firefighter? We're looking for guys." And I was like, just thinking like the way he said it, it was just like, "Hey, just put an application in, you start tomorrow," you know?
Yeah.
And then it was like, dude, I went through the whole thing, man. I went into the academy, man. I had to pass all the state exams. I had to do all that shit. And it was like there's so much training and shit, but I loved it. I loved it so much, dude. And the first fire that I went to, man, this was I wasn't supposed to go. It was a mutual aid call. I actually was supposed to go to the department. I didn't know because I was a new guy. And I just like all my shit was in my car because you just show up. And it would like switch teams or whatever. But in any case, my shit was in my car. So I just jumped in my car in the morning. It was like 2 a.m. I shot over to the house. I put all the shit on. I get out of the car. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I hear somebody say, grab a chainsaw. There's only enough SCBA masks for the guys who jumped on the truck. So they've all got them. There's no mask. I don't have one. I just have like my shit on. I was by the truck. I heard that. I just grabbed it from the truck, grabbed the chainsaw from the truck. It was a balloon frame house, and it was fucking fire was coming out, fucking going up, and they wanted to vent it. So they had a ladder up, and I came up, and Jeff was there, and he was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I didn't think anything of it, but I didn't think anything of it. I have the chainsaw, so I climb up the ladder. Flames are fucking flying, and I'm just chainsawing this thing. I don't have a mask on. It should not have been there. 1, 2. I should have had a mask on. It shouldn't have, but everyone was standing around, so I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I got yelled at for that, but I got a lot of guys gave me respect for that because they were like, "What the fuck?" But to your point, I was just a young kid who didn't fucking know fuck. Right. I just showed up and I was there to get after it. But after that, I was like, I fucking love this. This shit is insane.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, to that point, brother, if this is something you want to do or anybody listening, when I tested in the city, I tested with, I think, 5,000 people. And I tested in the top percent and was hired pretty quickly. The most recent application process, like they're having problems getting people. So I don't want to get in the weeds of why that is, but just so you know, if you want to do this job, it used to be like, oh, you would try and maybe never get a job. Right now, if you're like a fit dude, you're reasonably smart and you want to serve, you can jump in this service a lot easier than my journey was 15 years ago. So
hell yeah. And dude, dude, people would fucking love that if they really bought into that and jumped into it. I absolutely loved it. The thing is that fitness was always first for me. So that's why I resigned and we moved down here. Cause I was always like, the plan was always to open a gym. And so like, this was the place to do it. But like someday I would like to go back to it because that was just amazing. And it's in any case, like, yeah, you have the ability to serve and it shows you something. I never saw some of the shit showing up to some of the cars with showing up some of the cars that were just destroyed. Like 75% of what we did in the town was basically motor vehicle accidents. So, I mean, that happens just like people's mangled bodies and you see it and it makes you think about life a little differently. Like, look, this could happen. It's not even your fault. Like you shouldn't definitely not be texting and driving. It's like, that is how you die. You know what I mean? So in any case, not to get into that, but like I do think that you should put yourself through it. You mentioned earlier that you feel like, every young man should put themselves in the military. I definitely agree with that for that reason. You will have so much more of a respect for what you have here if you see some of the reality of it. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. I mean, for yourself, for the great country we live in, we used to have rites of passage. So that's what I always tell young guys. Like if you don't have a Division 1, you're not going right to college. You don't have a sort of like beaming light on what you're going to do. Go serve your country.
Yeah, dude, 100%, man. And so then you also do CrossFit. So you got into CrossFit and you're a trainer. So explain all that. What got you into CrossFit? Why CrossFit?
So one of my best friends in the Marine Corps was a bodybuilder. Big, like looked like he had a bunch of nutmegs in his shirt, just built dude. So he kind of taught me working out in 2000. And when I got out, I got hired in the city, and my academy instructor told me I was going to gain 50 pounds my first year. And I'm the kind of guy that's wired like you. I thought, bullshit. So I trained for the Firefighter Combat Challenge. We went to Worlds. The best way I knew, all special forces and everybody, it wasn't what it is now, CrossFit. It was kind of back alley in people's garage. It wasn't corporate like it is now. So I did my first workout and I thought, oh, I thought I was in shape. So I started training CrossFit and then right away got my cert, started coaching it to get better at that Firefighter Combat Challenge, which they say is the toughest 2 minutes in sports. I'll show you a video after this. It's a trip, but that got me into fitness because I didn't want to be that norm, right?
Why do you say like you thought you were fit until you did it? What was it? It just like, what was it that made you think that?
You know, I don't want to shit on Globo gyms, but I would do the Globo gym thing. I would deadlift and then I would do cardio after. And my first CrossFit workout was Emily at CrossFit South City. They just closed and kind of a lot of their clients went to Ready to Live. And my first CrossFit workout was like 400-meter run with like 225 deadlifts.
Oh
I was like,
man,
oh, I can deadlift, almost 400 pounds. I got this. And I was like, ooh, I realized right away, I'm not in the shape that I thought I was in. So then I was just hooked.
dude. So this is I have always, I know we were just talking about this over the weekend. I have been I have been involved in fitness my whole life, like sports all the way up until end of college. And then just lived in a gym since. But like I always like to say, like I started working out when I was a freshman in high school, and I've been sore ever since. I've just been just doing it, man.
Mhm.
But one thing I never have gotten into is CrossFit for no specific reason. I admire the guys who get after it, but my thought was that CrossFit was a sport. And lately, anytime I talk to somebody who's deep into CrossFit, they're like, "No, man, there's a whole other side of it." But I think what people think about CrossFit, like let's say the Gen Pop people, the people that don't wrap their elbows up and like show up with the chalk, is that it is a sport and it's for like the super saiyan of the world. The people go in and just do crazy stuff. Like, what's the counter to that? Like why is there this weird thought that it's only a sport, and like why is it not only a sport?
I think that became the CrossFit Games got so big, like the Rich Frownings, the Adonis looking people kind of started getting all the publicity. And you don't see the everyday community. That's like less than 1% of our members at any CrossFit gym. The majority of people are, my wife's a hairstylist. She
Right.
works out at 5:30 a.m. every day. She does it because I believe it's the best thing you can do for fitness because we're going to work on mobility before we move. Then we're going to do a very short but fast workout. And then we're going to work on strength and then finish with some kind of cool down. So it condenses everything you do here in an hour. So if you're a high level person and you don't have 2 hours to play, you can get in and get out in an hour. But community is the biggest thing for CrossFit because much like the military, which is why I was drawn to it, when you suffer like that together, the running community is like that. When you suffer, you're in that suck together, it creates a bond with people. It does. It really brings people together and you have that thing in common. So that's really the biggest aspect of CrossFit is the community.
Dude, I know somebody who he was at a CrossFit gym. And I talk to him every time I go home. I'm part of the family, and he always asks me how the gym's doing, and I always ask him how he's doing in his fitness. He gets after it. Any case, like he was part of this CrossFit gym, and it was in Bloomington, Illinois. And any case, he moved to Peru, Illinois, or maybe he's in LaSalle now. Any case, that's 45 minutes away. He didn't leave that gym. That motherfucker drives 45 minutes at least once a week to go hang out and train with those guys. And he'll get up at like 3 in the morning, and like drive out there, get
Yeah.
the workout in, drive back, get to work. And I think that's insane. And I think I'm saying at least one time a week, because I can't remember, exactly, but just this last Christmas, he was telling me could be like up to 3 times a week if he's got the time.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
just like the power of that community. Like he's willing to make an hour and a half trip. You know, 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back, because he sees like the benefit and the power that like people don't really understand or give credit to when it comes to the community aspect of fitness and how powerful that is.
Right.
And I think CrossFit has killed it with that, man. That's
Yeah.
the one thing, like bar none, like they crush. Like you can only hope to have the community of CrossFit, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just CrossFit though. It's anybody who really spends. I mean, look, Matt Vince is just because this is specific to us is been bringing so many people together just based on his brand, man. So
Mhm.
100%. Is that sort of is that sort of why you continue to push it? Because you can bring people in who are anybody, or who do you like to work with mostly?
As far as breath and exposure, or
Well, breadth and exposure, CrossFit, like what any of your coaching avenues, like what is the demographic of people that you're looking to help?
so fitness has been part of my life for so long. It's just something I do, right? It's part of who I am. So my biggest thing now is breath and exposure, right? Because everybody I roll with is working out, but most of the people I roll with are not down regulating. They're not getting in ice. They're not having that balance. So it's everybody, for both. Really, it's everybody. But the big push now is to get those people that are very alpha, very driven, whether it's corporate, firemen, cops, military. They're doing that hard workout, right? What are they doing after that? That's what I want to hear about. That's what's interesting to me. What are you doing after that hour? How are you coping? How are you showing up as a father, as a husband, at your job? Are you reactive? Right? If somebody shows up, are you the reactive one or are you the one to calm the storm? And that's what's interesting to me now. Because, like I said, everybody I will roll with, everybody we were talking with at Dope the other night, everybody's moving, everybody's working out. We're in that group, right? What's next?
So how do you convince the people who think that's woo woo, that think that's not worth it? They don't have the time for that. How are you messaging to these guys? How are you getting them to convert, to like give it a shot?
You know, I'm sure you understand this. When you're in fitness and you're doing something hard, you just have to be the model. I can preach until I'm blue in the face, right? But all I can do is represent and show like what I'm doing and show my clients and keep showing up and building, I don't want to say brand because it sounds corporate, but building my brand, right? I'm trying to be the one, I am the only one in the Midwest doing this right now. So just keep putting information out there, keep putting the science out there, keep dispelling myths on it's dangerous or it has to be this 2% body fat person that does it. We have all walks of life, man. I have clients that have gotten off pain meds, SSRIs. I mean, the list goes on. Someone like Sam, um, the list goes on as far as like medical, mental health benefits for these practices.
Dude, okay, before I bring us back, 'cause I wanna continue on, I wanna continue on the story as we go, but before I do that, what types of exposure are there? How does it how is it only hot? Is it, or sorry, cold? Is there a hot, is sauna part of this? Like, and, like, what's the process that you run somebody through? Is there, like, a diagnosis based on something? Like, "Hey, you're dealing with this, like, jump in the sauna," or, "Hey, you're dealing with this, like, jump in the cold plunge."
So for my event specifically, we're going to do the breath. We're going to do 20 minutes of breath, up regulation, down regulation. Then we're going to get into the ice for 3 minutes. I coach people through it. They're going to have that very quick fight or flight. Oh shit, I got to get out. And I'm going to teach them that they just need to extend that exhale, which is how to down regulate in that ice. Then we get in the sauna and we do 3 rounds. So that's my normal structured event, right? My practice and all the science for Huberman Lab and Dr. Soberg is hitting 185 or above, 185 degrees, getting about 30 to 60 minutes a weekend. That lowers all cause mortality. That's good for mental health, recovery, literally all the things. I call it the WD-40 for the body and soul. Same with the ice. 6 to 9 minutes of an ice bath a week adds, just compounds all those benefits. Much like your investment portfolio, when you do both, it's like an insane combination, for all things health and fitness.
And, like, what's the frequency? what's the frequency per week if you're somebody who's like working out like a lunatic right now? Like, let's say you're doing 10 miles, 10 miles of running a day. Like
Mhm.
for like the ultra marathon runner people slash like the people who just work out for an hour a day and they're busting their ass and they're like, I get all the meditation I need through like the workouts. Like, how often should they do it? Same or
I tell people much like fitness, or if you're about to take a medication, or if you're going through anything that you're adding to your repertoire, right? Let's say you're adding vitamin D or you're adding creatine. I tell people pay attention. So my practice is once a week. I just fought in Guns and Hoses a couple months ago, so I did ice every day for that because I needed to recover. But I didn't notice the cognitive or mental health benefits from that. So I kind of dialed back, and now I'm like 1 to 2 times a week. And so before I started this practice, if I didn't work out in a couple days, I'd get that like, oh, my wife would be like, you need to go work out. Well, that's where it's come now for my breath and exposure practice. Like I can kind of tell I'm getting a little tight, getting a little like antsy. And so my body tells me. So what I tell people is do it, start the practice, and whatever's accessible to you. You know, when you start the practice, you start noticing the changes, then that'll you'll get the deep dive. Then you'll start looking at the tubs and how much ice do I need to buy, and you'll go down a rabbit hole.
so when you got done, let's go back to the story. Um, because I kind of want to know how long it takes. So like how long it takes for something like a cold plunge or breathing, regular practice before you get good. Because I know like there's a skill to this to some degree. Do you think you can get this right away? Does it take like a certain amount of time? So when you first find this, how long until you realize it's working, or is it like first time?
Well, like I said, when I found cryotherapy right away, I noticed the cognitive benefits. Noticed it snapped me out of my head. I noticed it gave me that sort of meditation feel that took me so months to find. And I realized it was within seconds. So everyone's different. And what I tell people is wherever you're showing up in your central nervous system, that's what the ice is going to tell you. Right. So what I say is when you feel that resistance, like I'm tired today, I don't want to do this, I don't want to get in the ice, it's cold outside. What I tell people is that's the resistance you need to push through and do the practice. So we talked about I'm a fireman, right? So I didn't sleep very much last night. If I go do an ice bath right now in front of you, it's going to take me 20, 30 seconds to find my breath. If I'm on my 4 day and I'm regulated and I'm doing my normal practices, you won't even see me react. I go in, I dunk under, I come back up, and I'm chilling like a villain. So it's wherever
Mm,
you're showing up in your central nervous system. So when I tell people there's no getting better at it,
I see.
it's a gauge for you to see where you're at in your central nervous system. And the best part is there's no contraindications. The only contraindication would be if you're trying to gain muscle mass, you don't want to stop those microfiber tears after you just do 5x5 back squat. You want to wait 3, 4 hours to do that. Other than that, there's no real fitness contraindications.
That's interesting, right? Like the funny thing is that a lot of people like talk about like the ice bath. Like I did an ice bath when I was in football. I played college football at Western Illinois University. I did a it wasn't super cold, 53 degrees. I did from the neck down. I did it for 15 minutes after every practice. And then sometimes I would follow up with a sauna. But I just found that to be so unbelievably useful because like playing football, it's like your body's getting fucking hit. Like it's like being in a car crash every day, just fucking your
Right.
body.
Right.
In any case, like that really beats your body up. So I was just like, I'm gonna do the ice bath. And I would roll out and all that stuff as well. I'm a really huge fan of rolling out. But for recovery, if you look at the science of like ice baths for recovery, it's actually the least effective recovery method. So people like kind of write it off as like, I don't need to do ice baths for recovery for the body. So it's interesting that you say that. Um, and I'm like ice bath over. I'm like ice. I'm a believer in ice bath. But it's just kind of interesting how I don't think it's really I don't really talk about an ice bath when it comes to recovery in the body. I only talk about the ice bath for the neuroscience benefits of it, which are just clear.
Right.
But here's the thing, I don't do them on a regular basis, so
Right.
fuck me. I want them in my new gym. When we get to the new gym, I will have a infrared sauna and I will have an ice bath because I do want to make it a regular practice. But to your point, it's like accessibility is hard. Even in like ultra marathon training, it's difficult for me to like make an ice bath with like all of the shit that I have going on. So I roll and stretch like a maniac because I'm trying to take care of my body, stay hydrated, that kind of thing. But I want to add that in so much. So the pain of this thing sort of brings you to the moment. You have to down regulate. You have to get your breath. It takes you 20 to 30 seconds. Let's say you're somebody who's like a rabbit that's just always stressed out. Are there other things that you found that can bring people to this in the same way an ice bath can do? Is it required for you to put yourself in this sort of, let's say, pain or suffering to bring yourself to the present moment almost automatically? Or do you think like people can get that in other ways?
Yeah, you can. Like I said, I found that with TM, journaling. There's a lot of tools out there. But for most of us that are in this kind of hyper vigilant world, everything's click, everything's now. That's what I found. Right. Here's the thing. I've never told anybody this. So you're hearing it first.
Let's go.
This was a trick for me to get someone like you who doesn't have the time, did it in college, but hasn't done it since, the corporate guy, the military guy that says it's woo woo. This was my trick to get them into being woo woo.
Let's go.
This has been my sort of like scheme to get people to downregulate, to find that meditative state, because you can't hide from it. Like I said, once you get in there and you find that breath, it's you and you're present in that moment. So yes, there are plenty of avenues to get there. This is what I found is the quickest and then has all the other benefits that are most beneficial. But here's the best part. Most people are not doing this alone. That's why my business has taken off. It's again about community.
Yeah.
It's groups. I don't know a lot of people doing this on their own.
Yeah.
I do it on my own. I have maybe 3-4 clients that bought cold plunges since I've been doing this for 3 years. But it's a group. It's people doing it in groups. And we call the sauna the truth barrel because once you get out of that ice, the science now is you want to auto-regulate, get a little horse dancing, get some movement, then get in the truth barrel, we call it. Same thing. You're in that 220-degree sauna. That's what I roll my sauna at. You're at 220 degrees. You're cold. About 8 minutes in, now you're at zone 4 cardio. You're in 130, 140. Now you got to find that breath again. Now you're coming back to that breath. So again, it's a community, but it's you. So all the tools that I just taught you in the first part where you're doing breath for 20 minutes, you learned in the ice. Now you got to kind of auto-regulate to keep that heart rate down because it's just thumping and you're sweating and you're like, I want to get out. And it's finding that breath and being present to get through that 15, 20 minutes of that heat.
So you kind of travel. Can you travel around with this? Do you have like let's say ice baths that are mobile?
I do. Yeah. So I'm an ambassador for Ice Pod. It's all on my link tree on the Instagram.
Okay, gotcha.
They're pretty reasonable, very easy to pop up. My coach Cody does a lot of pop-ups at yoga studios. Those have been the quickest for someone that wants a home practice. We have a couple clients that are college students that can just put it on their balcony and it's this size. So those are great. You don't need as much ice. I have a 100-gallon ice or a horse trough. And that it just uses a lot of ice. You know, you get more space for a bigger human, but it's a ton of ice to get to temperature.
Yeah, that like there's a couple of those that you can something like that what you're talking about that you can buy for your house and you can just like refill it with ice.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about that too, but I look at it and I'm like, man, I kind of need like a big ice maker. I want to buy like a big ice maker, dude. You know what I mean? And have one at my house.
Yeah.
But I'm like not taking action on it. I need to take action on it, dude. Because you're getting me all of this talk about this. I'm like, this is something I need right now.
Yeah.
I'm fine with dude. I'm always on like 1,000,000 miles an hour, like, and then I hit like a week where it's just like body says fuck you, and like and then it's just I'm still trying to push through that. I'm trying to push through it, not like, kind of lying to myself, trying to just be like, I'm not tired. I'm not, keep saying, do whatever you got to say to keep trying to push yourself.
Yeah.
When I could just do this and find my way of balance while you're still pushing into this high thing. I think that's the biggest issue I have right now currently. This is why just recently I've been like, all about this particular thing. So it's interesting. Yeah. What is the difference between an ice bath and cryo? Do they have the same effect?
Yeah, very similar. So, like I said, because it was my first experience, it got me into it. So I call it the gateway drug for cold exposure. It's not as hard. It's a vapor. You're putting on booties and mittens, and you're in there, and you got to find your breath, and your skin's going to feel tight, and you're going to get that dopamine release. But it's not the same sort of visceral like what you've seen online, right? It's everywhere now. It's not the same like, oh shit, where you need a breath practice. So it's great for recovery. If you can find it and that's all you got, I say do it. But yeah, there's nothing like getting in an actual ice bath.
1 second, dude. I gotta do that again.
Okay.
So let me pause this. Sorry about that. Okay. So what do you do? So what do you do now? Do you still deal with these traumas that make you kind of from your past that make you like hyper vigilant, that make you feel like that somebody might come in here at any moment? You're checking the corners, making sure people aren't on the roofs, that kind of thing. Like, do you still deal with that? And if you do deal with that, are you just like right away you're like, I need to get in the ice bath right now? Is this like an app you apply this practice immediately when you start feeling it come back? How's it go?
Yeah. Your questions are great, by the way.
Good shit.
So here's the thing. When I started transcendental meditation, I was really worried because of my job that it was going to make me honestly, I thought I would turn into a pussy because of the stigma around people who meditate and do yoga. And so I asked my meditation teacher, is this going to make me worse at my job? Like, am I going to start like not reacting? And he said, no. Actually, this is going to make you a precision tool because now that outside noise isn't going to be there. So now you're going to be able to hyper focus when you actually need to. And that's what I found. I found it to be where combat stuff's gone. I can watch war movies. I can hear gunshots and fireworks where I didn't used to. And now when things happen, I can dial in much quicker. I can be the calm in the storm without all that stuff. Now the fire service, right? When I run a bunch of calls and I'm tired, I can get in that hypervigilant state. So again, like I told you, what I do is instead of avoiding it, I'll go right into an ice bath to reset. Another tool I have, so we talked about traveling. I used to always find a CrossFit gym when I traveled. As soon as I travel now, I try to find a cold exposure place. Now, there's not a ton of them out there, but same thing. When I travel, that's the hardest cold exposures I've ever done. I get into that ice bath, again, 30 seconds to a minute to downregulate from not sleeping, altitude, stressful, like I did in LA at Deuce Gym. It was one of the hardest ice baths I'd ever done because we sat in really bad traffic. It took a while to get there. I was like, okay, so then I'm able to reset and be with my family instead of being in that traffic. Oh, vacation, Disney for 3 days. I was like, boom, I can do this now. Okay. And reset. So it makes me better at everything, man, to be honest.
Dude, that's such a massive thing. You guys, if you're like a road rager, it's funny. I said this to somebody. I said to somebody literally today. Saw a post that there was a person who was talking about basically this guy who did a mental challenge where he sat on a chair and watched a clock, like stared at the clock for 24 hours and just tried to not move his face away from it for 24 hours. And that was interesting, right? It was like, holy shit. And then he did another challenge where I think he did a couple of days where like he just stared into the eyes of his buddy, like eye contact with his buddy for like 2 days. And it was like, do you think this is useful? And I'm like, and my message was, I think that would be extremely useful because that would be hard as fuck. That would be like super hard. No music, nothing. You're just staring at a thing. Like, what the hell? Like I said, I think it's harder to do that than run for 24 hours because running for 24 hours, you have a pain to deal with and all sorts of shit's going on and shit's moving by you. There's like shit going on that you can kind of like wrap your mind around and distract yourself.
Right.
But like for something like that, it's like, it's you with yourself in front of this fucking clock or better yet, like staring at your buddy, which I guess that's like a 2-person thing, which is interesting. I said the utility would be to never have road rage again.
Yeah, funny you mentioned that. So I didn't mention that part of my story. So before I found all this stuff, my wife met me right out of the Marine Corps. And we would be driving and somebody would flip me off for no reason. And I was the guy. I'm embarrassed to say it now because I don't recognize that person. But I would follow that person. Because when they did that, I took that as like, okay, I got to finish it. And she was in the car with me one day, and I followed this person and got up on them, got out of my car and knocked on their window.
Oh.
And my wife is very grounded. I got back in and she's like, this is not healthy. Like that can go really wrong really quick. And I was like, and I just defended everything I was doing. I was literally the stereotype veteran, angry, inflamed, worked out all the time, but I knew all the answers, right? Everything was black and white. And now when I tell you that out loud, I see those people and now I sort of giggle. I think, oh man, I was there. And now my go-to phrase is like, I say it to my wife, we're parents going off at our sports games. I'm like, they need an ice bath, because I used to be that person. I was reactive. I was at the whim of any outside thing that happened. I was ready to go to war and finish whatever that looked like. And that creates disease. That creates inflammation. That pushes people away. That black or white thinking. So if you're that person that's listening and you get road rage, it's not a way to live. It's not healthy. You're not doing yourself a service. Find these practices that we're talking about and find a way to down-regulate. So when you see that, you go, oh, I know what that behavior is, but not let it be part of you anymore.
So it's kind of like this cold exposure is forcing this I guess state of being where you can build a tool to become more aware of what you are, who you are, and then you can start to actually improve. That's interesting. That's a really powerful point, dude, because what you described is basically the word for it is cognitive dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
And cognitive dissonance is basically you're wrong for sure, because that's not good. But when I say you're wrong, whether I have all the facts in the world or not, you are going to defend that. And you are going to defend that with anything irrational. It's like your brain blinds you to any open mind. And then you come back at it. For example, any belief you have right now, think about it. You have beliefs you have beliefs so freaking ingrained right now that if somebody says the opposite of that belief, and they better yet, if they say your belief isn't true, watch your emotions just fucking rise up and just heat come to your face.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't aware of that when it happens, and to your point, I mean, you might follow somebody down the road, knock on their shit. God forbid, they take a gun out and shoot you because they have a gun in the car, and they just want to shoot you and get out of there. But that could be the outcome of something like that, when it really could just be one of those things where you feel that anger rise up, and it's not really about not having the anger, but your wife is like, dude, what the fuck? And then it's regardless of how wrong you are, you aren't in a place where you can see yourself being wrong and defending it with bullshit. And you'll come up with anything. Cognitive dissonance is interesting. It's if you watch it, you are very blind to cognitive dissonance. Very blind to it. This is a blind spot. Everyone has it, and you're blind to it. So it's very difficult. And then when somebody says, hey, dude, you're doing it, you will argue. No, I'm not, because, and it's so hard because you are 100% right in your mind, even though you'll come up with anything. That's interesting. So this is a tool to get around that, a tool to bring awareness to that. That's interesting, man. That's super powerful, man. People don't understand how useful that is, because emotions, you can't make decisions based on emotions, man.
Right.
So what is your goal moving forward? What is your end goal moving forward? How would you like this thing to evolve? Breath and Exposure.
I mean, me personally, I'm just trying to expose as many people as I can. That's why I have the mobile trailer. That's why I'm doing podcasts, just letting people know. I've been telling clients, right now it's trending, right? It's everywhere. People are talking about it. It's on everybody's social. It's in the algorithm. But I tell people this is not trendy, right? The East has been doing this since the beginning of time, getting in cold, getting in heat. It's just been part of the human process. The West kind of lost it. And I'm just trying to be the ripple in the pond of healing and trying to spread it as much as I can.
You're also doing stuff in the water. I saw, every couple of weeks you do this water class. Explain that. You were you had dumbbells under the water, man. You were doing some wild shit.
Yeah, so that's part of XPT. Like I said, Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese. That's their entity. And yeah, very similar to the breath and cold. When you get underwater and you're holding 250-pound dumbbells, that scarcity kicks in. And it's like, nope, I can't do it. And what we're doing is we're building CO2 tolerance. Now, if you know anything about CO2 tolerance, once we build that CO2 tolerance, everything gets better, right? So stress levels, GI, mental health, sleep, sexual function,
Why is that?
literally everything gets better because you're processing oxygen better, right? So if we do a test, regular CO2 tolerance test is at rest, it's like gauge like the ice. Natural nasal inhale, and then hold. If you can't hold past 30 seconds, you know you're in that fight or flight. We know you're not efficiently processing oxygen well. So that's when all that dysfunction happens. And I talk about that in my seminars. So that's what we're doing in the swim. It's fun, very low impact. You feel like a kid because you're underwater with weights. But the main thing, again, I'm tricking people. I'm tricking people to be their own alchemists. They're learning how to do CO2 tolerance, right?
I love that. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
So again, much back to the yoga and all that stuff. All of this is a scheme of mine to trick everybody that's the alpha that wouldn't do that, showing them the athletic pursuits that can get them to be their own alchemists. So instead of just sitting here like this and they're doing athletic stuff. They're doing cool, sexy things that are in the zeitgeist now, but actually they're getting better at all these mental health and all these personal mantras and down regulating and sleeping better and all the health benefits of the meditation and the yoga.
Dude, I love that. You're tricking people into becoming their own alchemist. That is so interesting. That's so right. That's the right way to put it.
Yeah. I've never told anybody that, but this seemed like the good place to do it.
No, that's right. That's right, dude. Because it's like, look, that's the interesting thing, right? About like the fitness industry and like how 75% of the people that really need this don't come and do it. That's what's interesting, like it's like we need to get those people to come over to fitness, but they're like, I'm not going to waste an hour a day with fitness. Could you imagine not exercising every day to some degree? Could you imagine not getting your heart rate up to at least 50% of your heart rate max, which by the way, you get by briskly walking for no more than 30 minutes a day? You don't get that. 3 of 4 people in the United States that are adults do not get that every day chronically. That is insane. But like you try to tell them like, hey, you got to work out every day. And they're like, you want me to go to that fucking dirty place and like hurt myself for an hour a day? Fuck right off. And we're like, no, you don't understand. Like all of those pains in your back and your fucking legs and your arms and your joints, it's all tightness. And like, you're not getting oxygen into your body. Like you have headaches every day at noon. You feel like you can't even think straight. It's not because of the food. Don't get me wrong. Probably because of the food, but you're not exercising more than 30 minutes a day, at least every other day. Dude, come, let me show you how I can profoundly change your life. Yep. That's the first step. So the goal in personal training at this point for me has been, how can I create a system that can keep people doing this for their life, where it's not like I'm boring them with the science of exercise physiology, because that's what it comes down to. Mrs. Jones comes in. It's like, I'm not going to be like, all right, we're going to work the glutes I'm not going to work like the biceps. I'm not even going to say the muscle groups. Dude, we're just doing upper body today. Good to go. And even that's a little bit much. And I'm not going to go too in depth unless she wants it. Like for the most part. And then variety. You see people like working variety. I have this thing where I say, this is the last thing I'll say on it. But basically that it's not the results that keep people coming. It's what keeps people coming that gives them the results. So it's consistency and finding ways almost to entertain you. Tricking them to get the benefits is basically what is happening in the fitness industry I see. And I don't disagree with it. Orange Theory Fitness kills with this particular model. They give you they use the dopamine hits. They get you on the app. They give you the watch. You get instant results. You watch your calories as they burn. You see what zone you're in on a screen. And then when you leave, you immediately get rewards come to your phone and like all this stuff. And then you can just share it to Facebook in a second, making the workout fun. And if you look at an Orange Theory workout, what's an Orange Theory workout? But, and the reason I say Orange Theory is because Orange Theory became a $1 billion company in literally 11 years. So they know whoever the fuck is doing it. The cabal might be doing it, but like they have a model that works, but they're doing what you said. They're coaching. They call it coaching, but there's no real fitness. There are some fitness professionals, but not really fitness professionals. I was an Orange Theory coach for 6 months. In any case, there's not any real fitness instructors in there. They're coaching a template. The template is the focus is to distract the people on the treadmill. So you're coaching the treadmill, and then people do dumbbell exercises, pretty non-invasive, lower weight, and then they'll be on the row machine. But the reason why they want you to focus on the treadmill, dude, like make sure you're on the time with the treadmill. You're doing these different weird stuff for 30 minutes of the workout, and then they switch. There's 24 people, 12 people on the row, on the runners, and then on the floor. Long story short, it's 30 minutes on the treadmill. Even if you just power walk, that's the minimum requirement for the day.
Right.
So it's just making it fun.
Yeah. Well, and they popped up in the boutique fitness, which started from CrossFit, right? And so I don't want to shit on the fitness industry.
Hit it.
It's great, right? We're getting people moving.
Right, exactly. That's where I try to go with it.
We're getting people moving. But the future is, I'm glad to hear you say you want cold. The future is, if you want people to be healthy, it's not 30 or 60 minutes a day, right? That's why CrossFit took off. We're talking about how to eat. We're talking about mobility. Now we're bringing this to it, right? So now instead of just that 30, 60 minutes a day, it's a lifestyle.
Right.
It's not check off this box for 30, 60 minutes. When you're doing more hard stuff throughout the day, you're much more likely. If you're doing an ice bath, you're not going to go eat dog shit when you get out of the ice bath, right? You feel good. You feel clean. You're going to make a better choice. Right? The more we can kind of compound these good choices, these down-regulating choices, these movement choices, the more it turns into a lifestyle. And that's what I want to see. And I'm starting to see it in the fitness industry. That's what XPT is all about. When you go to their things, it's all about how to eat clean, how to cook clean, community, ice and cold, instead of just that splat point. Like, that's great. That's great for somebody wanting to lose a bit of weight to get to a wedding, or somebody's going from, I call it couch to 5K. That's great. But for people that have been in the fitness realm for a while and they've kind of stopped at their goals and they're starting to feel inflammation, they have injuries, we got to start adding what I'm doing to the fold. So a responsible gym owner, someone who's a real fitness professional, that's what Will's getting ready to do at Ready to Live, adding that element, because you got to have the balance. You got to have the down regulation. You got to have the healing. You got to have the fitness professionals that are finding the edges right now. And eventually what I'd like to see, to kind of long answer your question, I want to see that be a part of every gym.
Yeah, that's why I will have this. I will have this in my gym, in our next gym, and our next gym is coming within 12 to 18 months. Guaranteed 100%. It is happening. And I'm going to have this element. I'm going to have cold. I'm going to have warm infrared saunas. Because I want to be more. I want to be more than just the workout. I want to be more than just the nutrition side of things. All that is super important. But I also I want, there's one thing that's always missing, and that's like one, recovery, but two, like what are we doing? What are we doing to and what tools are we using to become more aware of ourselves? And that is such a thing that doesn't really exist in the fitness industry. Like, just working out, you can become more aware of yourself. But what are we doing to build the skill of harnessing like awareness? Man, awareness. And the first month of personal training for us I call it awareness month, where it's like when people come in, they have this idea, I need better, because right now everything I'm doing isn't working. Let's say I feel stuck. And most of the people who come here, they're executives, they're doctors, they're high achieving human beings. They're not like people who, you know what I mean, that are just doing nothing and like they're total messes. They're high achievers, but they're like, fucking, I don't know what I can do all this other stuff. I can't do this. Something wrong. And I say, okay, well, like, how much are you working out? What are you doing? Like, what is your goal? They have no idea. Mm-hmm. Like I was kind of hoping you could set my goal for me. And I'm like, that's
and what I've found and what I've been doing for 3 years is those are the hardest people to get to be sitting with self. Here's my favorite story, since I've been doing this for 3 years. So my kids help me, much like fitness. They grew up in a little pumpkin seat. I grew up coaching with kids on shoulders at our gyms. And so they've seen it. They've seen the fitness. Now they've seen the breath and exposure. And we were flying to LA to go to Disney. And my son was, I think, 8 at the time. And we had really bad turbulence. So they're not bringing the drinks out. And it's kind of shaky, you know? It doesn't bother me because I've flown a ton of times. But I think it was his first ever flight. And I'm watching, kids are freaking out, kids are crying. And I look over and I notice my son's doing box breathing. Dude, that makes me want to cry. Because most adults don't know how to regulate their internal world.
Mm.
And so I let him do it. Once I saw he like regulated himself, I was like, hey man, were you doing box breathing? He's like, yeah, because I saw you teaching it. And that's the best testimony that I've had so far, that an 8-year-old boy can regulate his internal world when most adults right now don't know how to fucking do that.
Mm.
So that is my mission. That is our next goal. Cody's going to be going and getting his physio first. I don't know if you follow him. Getting this into schools, teaching kids, getting the sports programs. Very high level kids programs are doing it. Top NBA, top professional sports are doing it. But that's my goal, is start teaching kids how to do it. Getting them to have those tools young so they don't make those mistakes and be road ragers when they're 16, 18, 20, no matter what they've seen in life, right? But be able to be present. I see this outside stimulus, turbulence, stress, whatever it is, and being able to have that tool of breath. Very simple. Breathe in 4 seconds, breathe out 4 seconds, hold. Breathe in, hold, exhale, hold. So, yeah, man.
It's probably the most, if you think about it, it's probably the most powerful thing kids will need in the future with the way technology is going, man. You're like, I don't like everybody from like me down. I lived a short period with like Facebook just became a thing, but it was MySpace just became a thing. And so like when I was in high school, and I'm 30 years old right now. So like there was this place where there wasn't social media the way that it is now. And there's this place where there's social media the way it is now. So I have this way of being like, look, this isn't right. This is fucking weird. What's happening? Extremely powerful, extremely detrimental, but like the amount of information being crammed in your face and down your throat, like navigating that will require emotional control because they know how to get you to engage online. And it's by totally compromising you based on your lack of emotional control. It's like, Donald Trump, how do you feel? Like Biden, how do you feel? Abortion, how do you feel? It's like they can just throw fucking words at you and they know you're going to lose your fucking mind and you might be smart as fuck, but they have found a way to infiltrate your mind with words like Trump, Biden, all the bullshit. Mm-hmm. And they totally disarm you because you don't have the tools to downregulate and be aware of that your emotions are out of control. I know a lot of super successful people who are totally disarmed when you just say the word Trump.
Right.
It's like they can't even think anymore after that happens.
It's everything we were saying. Like I call it, you can't pull every rope. And so that black or white thinking that I used to be a part of, I would engage in those conversations. I would say, this is why. And I would use my military service as my evidence for my opinions. And now I just say, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. There's so much power. And when someone's ready to tell you how much they know and how right they are, you're not, I said this years ago when Facebook got insane. And I've been off Facebook for a while. Like, you're not changing hearts and minds in the Facebook comments or the YouTube comments. So keep your political stuff to yourself. How about let's just make the world a better place? Like I said, teach my kid how to downregulate.
That's what I'm saying. We need more of that.
And so you talked about the pool stuff. My son is by far the best person in the water because he has those tools and he's been doing it from little. He will take dumbbells, go to the deep end at the 21C Hotel. It's where I hold my events, and just walk in circles. And the adults are like, is he okay? I'm like, he's the best one at this.
That's freaking amazing.
Dude, you got to come.
Dude, I'm like, mark my words, man. I will be there. I will be there 100%. And it's on Sundays at 2 p.m., correct? Like every other Sunday?
Yeah. I got a schedule next month, but yeah.
For everybody listening to this, it'll be down in the description. All of Josh's links will be down in the description. And everything we talked about in this podcast will be down in the description. So definitely go check that shit out. And and go learn about more and book some of these classes and start like taking this kind of shit seriously. Cause I do, like I said, I think that this type of tool, it will be the only, cause it's not less social media. That's not happening. It's not less like it's being used. Tech companies, they're doing it. I just saw this thing, the Apple Vision Pro is basically augmented reality. We're all going to live in the digital world. Look, it's going to happen. What you need to do is you need to know how to navigate it. And I'm just looking at the time now, dude. This has been an awesome podcast. I have one more question for you. We're gonna have clients and trainers coming in here in a second, so
Okay.
I gotta break this thing down. But in any case, the last question. What's up, guys? We're about done here. Just give us like 1 second. The last question here, my man. And I asked this to everybody. And dude, and also thank you so much for coming on, man. This has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And I can't wait to cut this up and get this out because you've said a lot of really amazing things and a lot of things that people really need to start like buying into, man. I mean, this stuff is real. And I think that you're right. I think it is getting bigger and we need to continue to spread the message. So if you had the ear of every single person on the planet, all 8 billion these motherfuckers out there, and you had their ear and their attention, and you could do one message, what would it be?
Honestly, this goes back to when I was in recovery. I think it would be, you are loved, you matter, and whatever you're drawn to, whatever that thing is that you find yourself reading about, searching about, doesn't matter what you do for a living. Find a way to be the ripple in the pond and spread that thing, right? I had that scarcity mindset, like, oh, I'm going to be the breath coach. I'm going to get made fun of. And I had this kind of awakening, like somebody's got to fucking do it. Somebody's got to do it first. So be fucking first. Whatever that thing is, whatever that passion is of yours, be first. Someone's got to be first. Follow that passion. Let's change the world a ripple at a time.
I love that, man. Thank you so much. That was well said. Hell yeah, dude. Thank you so much. So grateful to have met you. So grateful that you would open up your time to come in here and talk with us, man. And I can't wait to get this podcast out because that was badass. And it was good fun, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, brother.
Guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for chiming in, listening to this podcast. If you made it this far, you're the best. And like, share, subscribe, do all the stuff you do with all of your other influencer people. And all of Josh's information will be down in the description. And man, I love this shit, man. Thank you so much. And always remember, folks, think big, live better. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.